Good evening, everybody. It's been a monumental amount of news, just breaking news. So much, in fact, so much, it's overwhelming. I've said that in the last couple videos. Lots going on with our financial sector, lots going on right around everything from finance, political corruption, police corruption, public sector corruption, through and through. And folks, I've toured a lot of schools, universities. I've talked endlessly about the crown, and it's spreading now again, once again, like wildfires. We see this latest lawsuit from one Pragjot Singh Weering. He's a law student in Edmonton, Alberta, and he's finding out, folks, from the Law Society that this oath he must sign comes up at the end of the month. Now, I had the fortune of talking to several Alberta students of law, many, and I've pushed this out all over Canada, mostly being thrown out on my butt from every major civil society and institution. When I say institution, universities specifically are institutions. They're crown institutions too. Did you know that regardless, these lawyers who wish to challenge and fight the oath or the optional affirmation, which again gives the divinity to the politicians, it's just a little more honest in BC and Ontario. You don't get out of the sworn allegiance to that autocratic system, meaning King's Court. It's not only about putting aside your religion, folks, which is detrimental if you follow the Bible, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ. Almost all Christian mainstream religions, you couldn't possibly in good faith, out of the Old Testament, ever swear that oath of allegiance. Yet many lawyers do. They say, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Well, this law student, in his final years, 8 years of his life vested in getting an Alberta law degree, now faces, after hearing what we had to say, faces the very real reality that he must swear against his God in the Sikh religion. It's a 500-year-old religion, but it absolutely removes the ability of anyone who wants to practice that faith of ever giving divinity to any man or woman in the world. That's blasphemy. This is also the same for the Quran. So any Muslims of Muslim faith can't possibly swear that oath. You can't, unless, of course, you're going to give up your religion. The same for all those of the Jewish faith. Now, there's many other faiths that all have these things placed in them. Anything of Old Testament absolutely enshrines it. I've read lots of religions in my lifetime. I've read all of their books, and they all share a common theme that there is a higher power that's beyond human beings. Don't give a divine power to human beings. It's absolutely opposite of what India is since 1948, although India itself still has those colonial embedments, giving that crown, that King's Court, absolutely in Governor General and Lieutenant Governors of the regions. They do that still to this day, no different than Canada. The trick with Canada is that it deprives all practicers of law, every single one who takes their bar in Canada, from being independent. It doesn't allow us to have any real independent judiciary, just like we don't have an independent Senate. We have a Senate sworn and appointed to the Prime Minister for the Prime Minister, in literally the sense of God. Now, it's not direct to the Prime Minister. The oath of allegiance for everybody of government or to practice law or to legislate, they all swear an oath that gives the power of the crown to the Governor General, who is bound and sworn to the Prime Minister. See the problem here? You're going to a majesty that's been placed into Governor General's hands. Governor General gets to be that Her Majesty, that godlike power, the crown power in Canada, who gives 13 crowns out with their tremendous power in appointing 10 governor generals and 3 territorial commissioners who all have the same crown power as Her Majesty in Canada. That's what the oath is. Governor General is in charge of all of the crown in Canada, but Governor General is appointed and sworn to the Prime Minister, meaning the Prime Minister tells the Governor General what they want them to do with the crown, and the Governor General must do it. If the Governor General doesn't do it, the Prime Minister fires them and replaces them with another appointment. How do you get appointed to Governor General in Canada? Well, in customary law, Canada's Crown customary law, there are only 3 ways to get appointed to Governor General in Canada. 1, you must be a wealthy citizen, defined by the 1% status. So you must make a minimum of $285,000 a year in Canada's language. Well, that pretty much wipes out 99% of the population. You can only be a wealthy citizen if you make that minimum requirement. Number 2, you would have to be a famous Canadian. Well, you look, and almost all of major appointments and governor generals are all fairly famous, wealthy. And then the 3rd is a personal friend of the Prime Minister. Have you heard the term arm's length? There's no arm's length in the Crown positions for Prime Minister in the elite first class of Canada. This is the exact same system that was Nazi Germany, not just a little bit. I'm talking identical to Canada's design. And folks, it's great to see another lawyer come forward with this style of lawsuit. It really is. But is it the first time in Canada's history a lawyer has decided to sue the Crown, either provincially or federally, to end the oath or the affirmation of loyalty to the Governor General sworn to the Prime Minister? Because that's the other option for BC and Ontario. No, you don't have to swear divinity to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. We'll just give you an affirmation that you're going to do it for Governor General to the Prime Minister elected. You're going to make them your God, but it's just an affirmation. Don't worry, it's not a sworn oath on a holy Bible, Quran, or Sikh sacred text. Don't worry. You don't have to do that. You can just affirm that you agree that if you should break with that divinity of the human being, we don't let you practice law anymore. We rip up your bar. And even if you become a lawyer and you're like, well, I did the affirmation, I don't believe in it, you can never be a justice of any court unless you do. And there is no province and definitely no federal government that removes that oath from any of the high titles, like judge in Canada. There's not a single justice that's a judge at any level of any court that hasn't 100% sworn their divinity to the divine God. Yes, Queen Elizabeth II, but in Canada's Constitution, you'll clearly read, and any lawyer who reads it knows exactly what's happening. The first 2/3 of the Canadian Constitutional Act, 1867 to 1982, plus all 11 amendments. When you read that, the first 2/3 of the Constitution explains all of this to you, that you put your belief, your divinity, your worship, your majesty, all of it into a divine human being, that being your Prime Minister, through the title of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, presented absolutely 100% to Governor General of Canada. And since 1952, folks, 1952, every province, every territory, and absolutely every Governor General of Canada, all lieutenant governors and the commissioners of said territories, have all been appointed through Governor General by Prime Minister, either Prime Minister directly, always for every Governor General, taking that crown power for themselves. It's the ultimate autocratic, divine dictatorial power. Now, this law student, again, folks, 8 years of school, 1 month away from having to swear the oath. And I'm going to roll down my windows. Super mosquito season here, but I can't have the sun shining and I'm going to sweat bags here. But this law student, 1 month away now, folks. Now he's suing and he's going to lose. Do you know why? He's claiming religion. I can't give divinity to another human being. It's against my religion. Let me practice law without swearing oath of allegiance. They're not going to let him, not in the province of Alberta. Precedent law, that common law people talk about, that they don't know really what it means. There's only one definition of common law in Canada when it comes to our legal system, and that is the law of precedent, not president. Precedent, meaning cases just like his in the history of Alberta and Canada-wide, because it's not the first time and not the first law student who awoke to this reality and found themselves going, hey, what the heck? I just put in all this time. You're telling me I must give away independent judiciary. I must give away the divinity of my God to a human being and absolutely fuck over every citizen of Canada if they tell me to, or they'll rip up my bar. Well, welcome to Canada. I've tagged all media in this. I've given this presentation right across Canada. I've given it all over the world. This presentation I've given so many times in so many high academic institutions has been super well received all over the world, but not Canada. In Canada, I'm a piece of shit. I'm not to even be at the level of a lot of these people. Not everybody. I was fortunate that I met my friend Richard Albert in Edmonton many years ago. I've tagged him in this. Canada's highest living constitutional expert, a top-rated constitutional expert on the world stage, meaning of all 193 nations. You'll even find Russia has used Richard Albert in some of their legal situations. They've used Richard Albert's teachings. So if that doesn't say holy smokes, I don't know what does, but they don't tell you this, Canadians. I know media looks into things a little bit. I am very happy CBC ran the story, but folks, this is all about autocracy, and it's all about everybody in the world looking at it. They know what Canada is, and the more Canada does it, I like it. I like it when stories like this come up. I'm going to like it especially when he loses. And it's not just, folks, it's not just the corruption of government, even though that's huge. Legislators not having any independent judiciaries anywhere in Canada. Look up the term King's Court, where the king gets to decide whether a justice can even look at your case, how a justice will rule in your case, or even if a justice can rule, but will they give you some kind of remedy? And there is a ton of precedent where politicians in the divine power have stepped in and said, no, through Governor General for all federal issues and absolutely all lieutenant governors at the superior courts. And remember, all lieutenant governors and the 3 territorial commissioners are all sworn in to the Governor General, appointed by the Governor General on behalf of the Prime Minister, even Alberta. Folks, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta is British descent, was given for nothing, literally nothing, automatic citizenship and status in Canada. She's never worked a day in her life. She's lazy, useless. She plays around in non-profits, which I'd love to go into all kinds of news on that right now, which is earth-shattering, and it's disgusting for the Canadian people. It's beyond all measures and levels of corruption too. And there's so much. I'll never catch up to it. It'll take me literally weeks to catch up to just 5 days of Canada's horrific amount of abuses and corruption and breaking news that's coming old, but you're not going to hear about it because the pile of corruption is just ever so big. But folks, we're not going to get anything we want in this country changed or rectified, regardless of the rest of the world moving on. Literally, UK doesn't even operate as Canada anymore. Hasn't absolutely since 1941 officially, behind the scenes, promised to the United States of America and the United Kingdom. Absolutely, United Kingdom made that promise to end it. Canada, like many other countries, was to get rid of all of it. There should not be a governor general. There shouldn't be lieutenant governors, not in the definition that's been carried over from 1867. That world, that League of Nations design, is not to be in this world. And for many, many countries, 84 of them, this has been dissolved and placed away. If there have been serious conflicts, and do the people roll into communism or dictatorship? Sure, out of fear and out of nobody getting involved to do proper constitutional conventions. It's always about power, stealing power. And honestly, the way Canada's designed, regardless if we remove that crown, if you don't do proper constitutional conventions, absolutely federally and provincially, putting in rules of governance, how to govern, and accountability in massive design by all the people in the world, a tremendous education, at least 3 to 6 months full time for all the people all across Canada. If you don't do that, you're likely in Canada to go communist before you'd ever go a democratic republic. And this has been history. It's been history. Those who are oppressed, that's what happens to them every time. It's not an accident. It's always a power base that once you do enact something, they go for all of it for themselves. And then they go right into the full-blown dictatorships. And people say the crown is stable. Well, I guess if you can rape, pillage, plunder, murder people at will, have divine superpowers, which are basically autocratic powers, I guess you'll do really well. If you have the police sworn to you, the military sworn to you, all doctors of every class sworn to you, all of the public sector sworn to you, your entire justice system from top down sworn to you, a Senate, your upper house, all sworn to you, not independent, appointed and lifetime appointed. It's sick. It's wrong. There is no we the people here in Canada, and there's never ever going to be. Now, Canada's outed. What's happened here, folks, what's happened here in the world is literally in a state of flux. And if people think that this hasn't happened before since World War II, it's happened many times. We've been on the cusp. We've been in all these situations, fuel crises, crisis of financials. The people are all twisted up. But do you know that the greatest monumental achievements come each and every time countries like Canada get just slapped right across the face? I'm telling you, the political parties going forward in the next 6 months, the media can keep propaganding media. They can keep going with the crown. They can keep gravitating to all these different political parties. But the reality is the world sees it. The United States citizenry and both political parties sees it in massive majority. I'm not talking minority here, folks. We're talking like an 80 percentile of congressmen, senators at the federal level. They already saw it at the state level. There is no question. No question. If you went around talking to governors and state legislatures, they don't all have that name, but it's the same definition in the U.S. Few different designs. Some have Senate, some don't. And when I say Senate, they have their own state Senate. But the reality is they all know it. What's going to happen here in November, we're going to watch absolutely the destruction of the very, very corrupt Democrats come to an end. If there are Democrats who do win elections and it's not enough to hold a majority, they're going to flop over with the Republicans in legislation. And I think U.S. has realized that they have a problem with the corruption of the presidency of the United States of America. Corrupt media, largely led by crown colonial powers, specifically UK. We watched one Boris Johnson fall straight on his face. On his face, he's finished. He got an approval vote in his party, just a little bit better than Jason Kenney in Alberta. If that doesn't scream, you're gone, I don't know what does. And people can say, well, I don't know why people would do that. Well, just look at all the corruption, especially in the court system, in immigration, in colonial customary law that they're trying to enact, and they've been pushing it hard. Boris Johnson made a major betrayal of the people of the United Kingdom and all the nations of the Commonwealth. And so did Joe Biden of USA Free America. They did probably the biggest crime, at least in the United States of America, for a sitting president to do. He chose to sign off on a promise made never again, World War II. It's what cost Americans so many lives and sacrifices on the altar of freedom. Joe Biden ripped all that up by signing the new Commonwealth Charter 2021, and that was the beginning of the end for Joe Biden. America's not been right since. It's gone straight down the toilet like no other president's ever done in the history of the United States. It's not even really believable, but it's there. It's happening. And he took that crown corruption, the same crown corruption that is defined as Nazi Germany, that was and defined as Imperial colonial Japan of World War II, the same design as colonial Spain in World War II. We can go on and on with the Axis powers. Sadly, before Soviet Union and USA got into World War II, they didn't jump into it right away, and US was the last to get in. And that's because they were negotiating the Atlantic Charter 1941, the end of all colonial empires. It wasn't just going to be the deal against the Axis powers, it was the end of all colonial countries, the divinity of human beings forevermore. Both Russia and USA, President Teddy Roosevelt and President of the time of USSR, Joseph Stalin, regardless of what people think about what transpired after and other wars America's in, at the time, or USSR was in, at the time, it was equality of persons cemented in the United States Constitution. Right in the preamble, you go through we the people, the power of the American people, empowering the American people. And folks, when you read that first preamble and section 1 and 2, there's a lot that is given. It clearly defines the people are running the country, and there's an equality of person there. And you know what? Russia has it too. The Russian people, the motherland, the fatherland, you choose whichever, but go read their constitution, read their preamble. So, this is not the same for Canada. Canada, there's an inequality of the people, and there's a divine divinity of a first class, an elite first class. Not only is that cemented in the highest individual divine human being right in the preamble of Canada's Constitution, but as you go through the first 2/3, they define defined that first class, all the powers of that first class, all the crown positions of the first class, where none of you, the people, exist, none of you. And the charter has always been problematic. It's not like the U.S., a cementing of Bill of Rights that's protected by we, the people. And it's backed up in their Constitution. It's also backed up for each and every state in their division of powers beyond the federal list of civics. They give state civics in property rights and much, much more. Much, much more. Your resources, your property rights, your ability to interstate trade without restriction, and there aren't any. There aren't any. They have water rights, real water rights. Canada, there aren't any. There's so many news stories to go through this week, so much corruption of Canada. It's off the charts, and I've kind of rambled here about this lawyer, this would-be lawyer who is going to lose in precedent law in Canada. He's going to lose. He doesn't get around that. They're not going to make an affirmation for him, as much as I'd love to see that. But what I love about it is at least this class, this law class, at least I reached one law student in their final year of studies, and they went for the challenge, but they're going to find in precedent law they lose. And even if the lieutenant governor gets granting from Justin Trudeau through Governor General to mandate a change here, it will still be required federally. It'll still be an affirmation giving official power of yourself and God's law, God's highest law. And you will have to take that and transfer that in affirmation absolutely to crown sworn colonial persons defined in the Constitutional Act of Canada 1867 to 1982, plus all amendments, all 11 of them. 2022, folks. We still have an Indian Act that says these are savage people. They're less than human beings. We have a crown customary system where we watch Stephen Harper go into private closed doors, make decisions with his Privy Council in absolute secrecy from all of you. None of you are to ever know. Justin Trudeau has done that not just 10, but 11 times since his election. And subsequent series of elections since he's retained the title of Prime Minister and he's had all of his crown appointments in place. He has done 11 absolute laws that none of you know about. I know a few of them, what they are, but they're not published for any of you. They're done in the divinity of a secret council, undemocratically. Because whenever democracy doesn't work, doesn't matter whom the Prime Minister is, they take their Privy Council and their crown and they make laws that none of you are ever allowed to see. Because again, from the savage Indian to the filthy third-class Canadian and the second-class business merchant, who as long as they swear that oath and they live up to that oath of the first class can retain their second class, their money, their business, but if they don't, they get put back down to third class. Bankrupted, doesn't matter. And remember, folks, financially in Canada's system, everything done financially, no matter what the debt, always goes back to the third class. Doesn't matter who accumulated it, it belongs to all of you. All the wealth in Canada belongs to the divine first class. If you don't understand this, you should really, really go read your Constitutional Act of Canada, 1867 to 1982, and subsequent amendments. Go read Section 92, and then go to any province, any territory, and show me a provincial constitution. I've had lunatic after lunatic or radical after radical. When I say those words, I'm talking these left lunatics and these alt-right radicals. They're up here at the autocracy. They say they're for freedom down here, but they live up here in absolute autocracy, and I catch them all the time. There's hardly any difference between them. It's social ideas that they think ideals, that these social concepts are what divide them, but they're living up here in full-blown autocracy. Full-blown autocracy. I can tell you this poor student who's invested 8 years of his life getting a law degree is going to find out that he can't be ascended. People, and he won't get a bar. He will do it or he doesn't get a bar. Go move to the States and say, if you want an independent judiciary, you want to follow the rule of law and not have that manipulated by an invisible crown, divine power, go move to the States, because you're not going to get that in Canada. That's what they're going to tell them. That's going to be the judgment. If they do somehow make an alteration, it's going to be affirmation. But I don't see it. I don't see the Crown of Canada. I don't see Justin Trudeau giving this Sikh any sense of independence in the justice system. No, he won't. You will obey me. I am your God. That's what Justin Trudeau is. That's what he believes. He's not the only one. They all get addicted to it. They all do. A lot of chiefs get addicted to it. People ask me how many chiefs are corrupted. Financially, not very many. That's the truth. I chase numbers. I have a list of every chief's salary and every chief's expense account. And there are some whoppers out there, folks. There's some whoppers. No different than the Canadian greasy, shitty, sleazy politicians and all their crown appointments. All the civil societies that are all so much for arm's length, or, you know, they're all related friends. First Peoples do it through the crown from chief down, and so do absolutely all Canadian politicians. It's a buddy system. In fact, what I am going to release this weekend for all of you, when we talk about ultimate corruption of Canada, I've had it up to here with hearing about Pierre Poilievre. I know it's not that, it's Poilievre or Poilievre. I don't know. I don't like any of it. But I can tell you this, folks. I have every single policy he has written and signed off. I'm building it all for you. I'm going to do a live on Sunday, going through every written, signed off with all his financial attachment and groups. I'm going to read them all off, and I am going to shock all of you, dead to rights, because I know people don't like to read, but maybe it helps when somebody does that for you. And I'll go through probably about an hour and a half, going through the hundreds of written and signed off, published 42nd parliamentary second session. And you know what, folks? It's under the second heading down. Second heading down. When you bring that up, it shows you absolutely what Pierre Poilievre issued as vice chair, second senior vice chair in the Conservative Party of Canada, and his 300 and plus things that he's going to do when he's Prime Minister. I have them all. Now, I know he campaigns and he tells you these 3 or 4 goals he's going to do, and a lot of it sounds like, what the hell are you talking about? You can't do that, or that's not going to happen. But I have what he is going to do, all hundreds of them, all of them. We're going to highlight all the crazy ones. Never mind the radical socialist spending promises for everybody. Money, 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 just like Trudeau. We're going to go through the hardcore, liberalized, socialist extreme policies that, I'm sorry, to me, that is exactly what Aaron O'Toole was doing. It's exactly what Stephen Harper did. It's what Justin Trudeau's doing. It's what Jagmeet Singh wants to do. It's what provincial NDP does. I'm going to show you entirely by him and him alone with his signature on it. We're going to go through those items. I'm going to show you everyone who helped craft it, all the civil societies, nonprofits, corporations, foreign and domestic, the whole group of them, because I have the whole group, massive group. And the names on that list, there's even some individuals, which is pretty ballsy. I'm going to show you some billionaires you're all familiar with in absolute policy that Pierre Poilievre has agreed and signed off to. What he's going to do as Prime Minister of Canada. And then I'm going to ask all of you when I'm finished, How much different is that between him and Justin Trudeau? The answer is zero. Canada is a crown colonial structure. It's built on the wealthy elite, an elite first class, divine socialist, divine capitalist. And there's no difference. When you're way up here in autocracy, there's no difference. And I'm going to ask you guys something, because there's massive things going around the world, and it's all in Pierre Poilievre's presentation. And it doesn't matter if you elect Pierre or you elect Justin Trudeau, because all the same things are going to happen. On that list, you're going to see which of Pierre Poilievre's friends are going to get paid off. Do you think it's the oil companies? I'm just going to give that little taste for you all. No, it's not. Oil companies completely scrapped out of it. Any fossil fuels scrapped right out of it. Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, the Green New Deal, it's all there. All of it. I'm going to show you every corporate, every billionaire who's signed off and is officially on it. In Canadian law, all this has to be published to you. It was published for everybody back in February 21st, 2021, but officially submitted to the Parliament on my birthday, almost like a punch in the face. And I had so much going on this last birthday with the corruption of Alberta. I tried to get into the Property Rights Commission and tried to get that for all of you. I wanted to see provincial constitutionalism, but Jason Kenney prorogued legislature. It's not going to go back up until November, and then they're just going to let the Property Rights Commission go bye-bye. That's what they're going to do. You'll forget about it. You'll forget about it. There'll be an election. There'll be a writ drop in February, 3 months after they ascend whoever's going to be the new leader. But do you think they're going to have a platform for provincial constitutionalism or real property rights, which would mean cementing a provincial constitution? None of them want to do it. None of them want to get rid of that provincial crown. None of them want independent judiciaries. They want judiciaries where the judge must obey the divine ruling politician, provincially and federally. You will never get a fair justice system. It's not possible in Canada. It's not possible. And there is no accountability. Zero. None whatsoever. We're going to go through all that Sunday anyway, and I am happy. The one thing I'm happy about what's happening around Canada is at least these stories are coming to light. Whether people gravitate to them or not, it's sad that they don't. But what I love is absolutely USA has gravitated to it. USA is done with Canada forevermore going forward. Canada is removed absolutely from the highest levels of international systems. We're now at the bottom. We're bottom feeders. We're down with some of the worst countries in the world. That's where we are officially. We're not welcome in a whole lot. China, USA had major talks just in the last 24 hours. They finished late Friday night, and it went really well. But China is sticking to their guns with Russia. As I said before, the entire European Union voted to add natural gas to the Green New Deal, which means Russia, number one, going to be number one there. And anyone thinking something otherwise or buying into Boris Johnson and UK's propaganda, sadly mistaken. Boris Johnson thrown out of office, like he resigned, but he's thrown out. Everybody's done with corruption. They've caught him as the president and chair of the board of the New Atlantic Charter 2021 with Queen Elizabeth II and one Joe Biden, where they strip all rule-based order out of World War II, the promise of never again, and the absolute end of all constitutional monarchies, end of that to be used as a template around the world and bestow divine power of one nation over the sovereignty of so many others. Well, they signed that off, and now it's cost Boris Johnson, and I promise you all, come November, that's the beginning of the end of Joe Biden. At least after November, we're likely to see mass amounts of impeachable offenses brought to the surface in House and Senate. That's a fact. Joe Biden is not going to survive the midterms. And then we're going to watch, like what happened with Donald Trump, we're going to watch with Joe Biden. I'm curious because there's more than a dozen impeachable offenses by one Joe Biden. It's just off the charts. He's even gone after the Supreme Court of the United States of America, a supremely independent judiciary. Nobody's sworn to any politicians. No one's sworn to anything except the Constitution of the United States of America. So if the Supreme Court rules something unconstitutional and you have presidents or politicians running them down, they're unlawful, folks. They're criminals. Canada, it is constitutional. Those are great things out of the Canadian Constitutional Act. Corruption, raping, pillaging, plundering, and creating your own rule of law under a divine human status of one or two people and all their divine appointments. That will remain for Canada forever until we constitutionally remove it. We can do that federally any day of the week we want to by any premier of any province or territory. If one does it, it will go like wildfire. But I know that law students are waking up now, at least in Canada, and they're trying to fight back. And that too is spreading like wildfire. One is better than none. That's what I always say. Keep going, and all we can do is keep educating. Because little by little, and hopefully in our lifetimes we'll see it happen. That's my video, everybody. There is good news out there. I mean, it's a lot of bad news, but sometimes you have to go down to make change. And I'm telling you, in the worst times in world history, since World War II, on the edge, on the brink, the greatest achievements happen in absolutely civil rights, human rights, and changes to some pretty shitty countries. Canada is one of those shitty countries. Don't let anyone fool you. For a small population with such tremendous resources, there's no reason for us to be in the situation we're in. In fact, we should all be wealthy. Every person of Canada, First Peoples and Canadians alike. You shouldn't be poor. The amount of exports you utilize for such a small population, you shouldn't be poor. There's pocket fillers, there's criminals, and they're your politicians. Thanks, that's my video. Bye, folks.